So the Locusts are, of course, a part of this game. We've been talking a lot about the Lambent, and they are very much a new threat, but the Locusts are, in this world, they have been driven out of their home, and they've gone almost feral. We call them savage locusts, and they're very, very good at cobbling together things out of spare parts and kind of improvising. And the locusts that you'll see in this game are more aggressive, they're uglier and meaner, and they're continuing their devious trend of utilizing the planet's life to their horrible ends. We have this creature called the Siege Beast, which is just this poor thing that has its legs pulled back on a regular basis. Probably not even meant to bend the wrong way. It's like Rod doing yoga.
Yeah, never supposed to happen. And not a pretty sight.
And as you crank it, it screams, right? And then you launch these kind of fireballs. It's like they had this kind of almost savage medieval type vibe about them right now. And you'll see the Siege Beasts in the campaign. They're pretty damn ugly.
Well, and the multi-turrets, I think, represent what we're talking about that sort of collecting from the battlefield. Is they don't have troikas. You know, what they're able to do is cobble together like 4 hammer bursts and strap them together and turn that into a turret, right?
Yeah, it's improvisation with what they have, right?
Mm-hmm. So what about the new third army? So we actually have a third force this time with the Lambent. You know, as you talked about, starting small and with dark wretches up to full-size dark sort of grenadiers and Gears 2, and now they're their whole army now. So talk about that.
Yeah, so the way that these creatures deploy is through these kind of organic masses that burst out of the ground or out of the water that are called these stalks. And these pods kind of form on them, then the lambent kind of come out of it, and the skin is blackened and charred. They're kind of filled up with emulsion, which is, as we've mentioned before, very hot, very kind of toxic fuel source that's been very key to the fiction. And they are incredibly tough to take out, seeing as you have 4 players in co-op. If you have your average drudge that hits, it takes quite a pounding, and it actually has the ability to mutate dynamically from its head kind of like branching upwards, or its arms kind of going out and becoming longer tentacles, and kind of launching out polyps from the base of its stalk after it mutates and things like that. Polyps, of course, being the very fast, very sharp crab-like creatures that also explode upon death, and they're tough. Oh, the great thing also is we've added in a new move, and when you chainsaw one of the drudges, is the fact that you get the kick,
right?
And you chainsaw him, kick him back into his enemies, and blow him up, and kind of use him as a bomb.
Because you never want to chainsaw anything that explodes, right?
Yeah.
Chainsawing a dark wretch in the first game would have been was not.
Yeah, chainsawing a hand grenade's not a good idea.
But I mean, the big thing, the drudges exist. They actually serve a pretty important purpose in the sense of the 4-player co-op challenge and being able to take on multiple enemies. They can shoot at 3 guys at one time, or they can rise up above cover and make you more vulnerable, right? Those are important aspects to make it a little bit harder in dealing with when you have a mob of 4 people always shooting at them.
They keep surprising you, right? And you never know like which mutation's going to come out. And sometimes like if you blow one up, it's like head to neck stalk kind of goes through the grass like a snake in the grass while it's shooting this emulsion based flame at you. And they're like a grab bag of horror, I guess.
Well, and who doesn't like a grab bag of horror?
It's like a barrel of monkeys.
But ugly monkey. No, but one of the things I think when we looked at the article, now we've had a chance to read the article, and one of the things that was slightly not quite exactly what we were trying to get across about the drudges was the fact that the drudges aren't the sort of dead locust brought back to life. These are basically an infected locust. What you like to call it more like rabies.
More like rabies than zombies, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is that this emulsion is inside of them, and that it is boiling and burning them, and they're in perpetual pain, and it's driving them crazy, which is really kind of a sick idea when we think about it.
It's like me in one of our meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, one of the things that we really focused on is we put a lot of effort into our campaign, and one of the sad things is that, after some period of time, a week or so, depending on how hardcore you are in your playing, that you consume that campaign, and you maybe go back and look at it from a different difficulty level, but generally speaking, you've consumed it.
They gobble it up and they move on.
Yeah, they move on to multiplayer. So the thing that we're really trying to focus on this time around is to say, like, look, we have all this great content. Why not go back and revisit it with different things? And so one of the things we've introduced is this idea of arcade mode, which is essentially like a competitive co-op, if you want. Like, you can play really cooperative and try to get your best score as a team, or you can play competitive co-op where you can individually compete against one another. And we actually allow you to change the rules, like adding mutators, and so you can just make it more silly, you can make it harder, you can make it easier, and just have fun just going back and trying different missions with different things that you didn't have the first time around.
It keeps it fresh. I mean, we've always said the beauty of co-op is somebody who's maybe more hardcore, kind of reaching down and giving the hand up to somebody who's a little bit more casual, but by adding in these elements, it keeps it fresh for the guy who's seen the campaign before, so it doesn't just feel like the exact same experience.
Yeah, just a little bit more of a sandbox. So even though there is a story there, you can choose to go in and just play with it for the sake of having fun. You just want to shoot some guys. You know?
And plus, they'll get a higher score than you.
Well, of course.
Yeah, one thing we've put some work into from the game and engine side is having environments that are a bit more dynamic. The first and most obvious result of this is weather effects. In some of the multiplayer maps, the map starts off sunny and then eventually transitions into something that's cloudy, and then rain's going and the wind is blowing and the trees are blowing in the breeze and the ground starts getting moist and it looks very dynamic and interesting. Lightning starts hitting. The other thing that we're doing is having certain areas of multiplayer maps that change physically, and that's not to say the play space changes. It's more of a cosmetic change, because gamers get really weird if you start monkeying with their cover layouts in the middle of a match.
Right.
But we have one section of an overpass that starts breaking off, and the map's outside area, it starts sinking in, and the map by the end of the match is essentially almost underground, and it really provides this kind of a memorable moment to a multiplayer map that otherwise just would have been kind of a cool location.
Yeah, and it's more than just time dynamics. It's not like, okay, this storm is going to happen over a 2-minute period or whatever. We can actually tie it to events in the game that, you know, if something were to happen in the game, whether that be multiplayer or any other mode, something important happens, we can then trigger the next stage. You know, going from a storm to a hurricane is triggered by some event in the game.